หนึ่งช่วงนะครับเป็น108 Music นะครับ108 ดนตรีอย่างที่บอกว่าเคยออนแอร์ทางไทย PBS นะครับแล้วก็ได้หยุดออกอากาศไปอันนี้เราก็จะกลับเอามาชุบชีวิตใหม่นะครับกับคอนเทนต์ใหม่นะครับรับรองได้ว่าจะเป็นมิวสิกคอนเทนต์ที่หาดูได้ยากในเมืองไทย
And what do you think might create a new thing, maybe called a fusion jazz? Yeah.
Nobody thought about fusion then.
Okay.
Nobody thought about fusion. No, and the thing is, in the '60s, yeah, I'm a jazz musician in a way because of love and discipline.
Okay.
But don't forget, in the whole of the '60s, I'm playing rock and roll to survive in records. All these records with Tom Jones and Engelbert Humperdinck, all these pop stars.
Okay.
But I'm playing rhythm and blues.
Okay.
Because there was no money I couldn't make any money in jazz. I couldn't survive. So, but rhythm and blues is great. Rhythm and blues is part of jazz. So, so I was very happy. So the whole '60s was a fantastic period, actually. In a way. I was very lucky just to be around that time, and of course to have the chance to move to America at the end of the '60s. This was perfect. Really, I'm a very lucky fellow.
Yeah. Okay. And someone they say that fusion jazz is not jazz. What do you think about that?
he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Okay.
No, but you know, these purists, they're terrible because they think they know what the real pure jazz is. They have no idea. They only it's because this is what they like, and they
Okay.
want everybody to like what they like. But since they are very narrow-minded, but they're all over the place. For example, when I played with when I formed Shakti in 1975, we were criticized by everybody, by the jazz people, by the Indians, who
Okay.
said, you know,
Yeah.
it's impure, it's you know, and Mahavishnu Orchestra, the jazzmen said, this is not jazz. I said, I don't care what you call it.
Okay.
You know, we're playing what we love to play because these influences that all happened in the 60s, they came out in the 70s, not because I wanted to make fusion jazz. Nobody knew what fusion jazz was.
Okay.
It was just an organic thing. This is how it happened. Because the work that I'd done with Miles, already from In a Silent Way, I could see which way he was going. And by the time we made Bitches Brew in the summer of '69, I mean, he wanted some R&B. And his favorite record of all time was Jack Johnson. And Jack Johnson, he didn't bring any notes, no music into the studio. And that opening piece was a piece I started in the studio, which was an idea that became the Dance of Maya, eventually in the Mahavishnu Orchestra. But I started with an R&B. I grew up with R&B, rhythm and blues, you know? So I started playing this rhythm and blues, Michael Henderson on bass, Billy Cobham on drums.
Yeah.
We hit a groove that was terrible. And Miles, he was in the control room. He heard this playing, and he ran into the studio with the red light on and played for 20 minutes straight. I never heard him play. And he told me later, he told everybody, this was his favorite recording of all time because all he did was run into the studio and play. Amazing, no?
Wow, yeah.
Amazing, and all those beautiful records he made. But so I was very happy to be part of that and to be at the time when he was looking for more R&B, funk influence to come into his music because he was through with this perfect quintet with Herbie and Wayne and Tony and Ron Carter. I mean, it was beautiful, but he realized he was at the end of that form and he had to change and he wanted to change and I just happened to be there. So thank you, Miles. Thank you,
Thank
Miles.
God.
And of course, but Tony Williams, I love Tony since the moment I heard him on Miles in Europe in 1964, 65. And so when Tony called me to play with him, I mean, he was maybe the greatest, him and Elvin Jones were the two most revolutionary drummers of the latter part of the 20th century. Revolutionary. And I was just thrilled. And I got to record with Elvin and play concerts with him too. So I played with the best. I'm a lucky guy. I'm telling you, I'm a lucky guy.
Oh yeah. Okay. And how come do you interested in the Indian music? And what did you get from
Indian music, you listen to Indian music, you're listening to some very highly evolved musicians. And we have a lot of common ground. It's very rhythmic, it's spontaneous. They improvise, they're master improvisers.
Okay.
So already we have a lot of common ground to meet. But it began with a philosophy because in the 60s, coming out of this whole psychedelic period, I was looking for answers, just like the Beatles and like all those people in the middle to late middle 60s. We were all looking for answers to the big questions of life, and in the West, it was very difficult to find because you have the dogma, you have the Christian dogma, and it does not address the question of enlightenment, which you've been doing in Asia for thousands of years.
Okay.
So it really began from a philosophical point of view or a metaphysical point of view. And then the music of India also is all inclusive because it integrates every aspect of the human being. And it took John Coltrane with his recording Love Supreme 1964. He was the one that he did it. I mean, God bless him, because he, in one recording, he integrated that dimension, the spiritual dimension of the human being in jazz music. And then, of course, we have, he did wonderful pioneering work. Then we have people like Pharoah Sanders, these musicians, jazz musicians, who have got a very developed spiritual awareness. So, of course, this had a great impact on me and people like Carlos Santana. One of the reasons why we collaborated in the early 70s, because we both loved these musicians and that aspect of music. Because by that time, it was part of jazz music or jazz rock, whatever you want to call it. So it's part of my music. It's part of these people here. They're all spiritually aware people, and I think this is it's marvelous because it's all inclusive. There's nothing missing.
Any advice for the young musician if he want to be like you?
No, I don't want them to be like me.
Okay.
I want them to be like they are themselves. The whole point of life or music or art is that you be really who you are. We learn from everybody. I stole from everybody. I stole from Miles, Coltrane. We call it being influenced. Okay. But really we just take what we want, what we need from these marvelous people, marvelous musicians, and integrate it into our life and music. And they should do that, but at the same time, you really have to question. You have to bring into question, the big questions like, who am I? What am I doing? What am I saying in music? What am I here for? The big questions of life, really. And I think these questions have to be addressed as an artist, because only by addressing these questions do we find out who we are. And only when we find out who we are, at least more or less, do we begin to have an identifiable style. Okay. But that style reflects the individuality and uniqueness of that person. That's why I don't want them to be like me. I want them to be themselves.
Okay.
But really themselves. But that takes work and courage sometimes, and it's and you suffer. But life is like this.
Okay, that's life.
As long as we keep faith, because music is the most beautiful power on the planet for me, in the universe, because it's the language only of love and affection. Music is the language of love and affection. You cannot be angry and play music.
Oh yeah.
You can play maybe 5 minutes angry, but then you forget about anger, because music opens your heart and your mind, and you become who you are in music.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
John McLaughlin ครับ
Thank you.
Thank you.